There was so much incredible information that Alejandro brought. So this is part 2 of that interview with the private citizen from Venezuela who lived through that hyperinflationary event. Pay attention, people, coming to a theater near you.
It's very hard, like, try to explain people, in 2 minutes conversation, those things that are happening, and not many people have understand it,
So
some of them.
what's really interesting about that though? If you're from Venezuela or Argentina or Zimbabwe or any of the other countries that you mentioned and you lived
Oh,
through it, but then you migrate to the US and you think that can't possibly happen here, right?
yeah,
Or even Mexico. Mexico went through that devaluation in 85.
yes,
And so, Fernando lived through that. He was an import exporter at that point in time. So he lived through that. He was living in the US, but of course he was importing and exporting through Mexico. So, but that's what I find really, really interesting is that even people that have lived through it, they put blinders on because they say that, now I'm in America, that can't possibly happen here. You pointed
yes,
out it has happened here before, and it is
yes,
happening again now, but this is
yes.
global this time.
I didn't believe when I started, like I said, it happened to me. I started listening to it, and wait a minute, what's going on? Dollar crisis? What is all this? So I start getting into it, and I'm that kind of person that until I don't understand something, I don't quit. So I start searching and searching. So I started looking at the graphic from the Federal Reserve, the purchasing power of the dollar. Like I said, N1, N2, N3, CPI, PPI, MMP, all those indicators. So I started realizing the gravity of the situation. They came out also with those things that cryptocurrency. Well, you always talk about the nominal confusion
Yes.
that they always have, and I think that's great. It's out in a way for people to understand, and I love when you bring the sample of the bread.
Yes.
Uh, how many units of bread you can buy back then on the 70s with $20, and how many you can buy as today. I think it's a good way for people to start understanding the gravity of the situation. So definitely that was great. And
Thank you.
that's exactly what happened little by little that you can afford less, less, less. And even the standard of living. Back in 1940s, uh, for what I wrote, Americans didn't have to have 2 people working.
Right.
Only one, the man of the household was the one who worked, and we had a housewife for the most cases. And until now, that everybody had to work because otherwise, people cannot really afford anything. And that's another thing. People don't really have the time to educate. People is trying to
Yes.
focus on working, and especially right now, people opt for 2 jobs, 3 jobs in order to make a little bit more money, trying to catch up with inflation. So by the time they get home, they don't really have time. So in a daily
Exactly.
basis to
What
get.
they actually wrote about that if they can create enough inflation and get everybody working and they're too busy to really pay attention to this. And so the situation just gets worse and worse and worse. I mean, the guys that created this fiat money system with inflation embedded into it, they're genius, evil genius, and
Yes.
disgusting. And so, personally, my hope is on the other side of this mess that we have a more fair system. And I think we have that shot if enough of us open our eyes and refuse to accept what they want to push down our throat.
I couldn't believe it when we were at that time the debate on the 2% target inflation, that we were not there quite yet. And then I was on my mind like, what are you talking about? You want inflation to be higher? Isn't it good to we have lower inflation be better? So those things, like I said, didn't make sense. That opened up my mind. That's how I start. searching a lot of stuff, and that's how I get into your channel. And well, that's how I went to the event too, because I love all the narrative from all the opponents that were there. It was excellent. I thank George also for what he does in
Yes.
microeconomics on his videos. He's doing a great job trying to educate people, like I say.
That's the
And
piece. You know, it is
yeah,
about education. I mean, how many times can you be lied to when you do not know the truth?
yes.
Right? So,
And that's the problem. Yeah, education, and especially when people are gonna vote too, they have to understand the importance of voting. On the elections. Let's see what happens. On these new elections that are coming up on November. No, it's just the way they're running things that it's really desperate to see what they're doing. You know what I mean?
right.
Especially in the inflation. What how do they call it? Inflation Act. I think the new program they're trying to
Oh,
get approved.
the fighting inflation or anti-inflation. Whenever they name something, it's really just the opposite. So you're going to save $1,800 on your utility bills in 10 years, but right now we're going to spend 435 billion. That's what
Yeah.
I'm talking about. You've got the Fed just absolutely committed to raising rates, even though they admit that the only inflation they can control via raising rates is demand inflation. So raising unemployment and lowering demand, but that's not really what's creating the inflation because of all that money that they never look in the mirror and say, okay,
Well,
we own our
they-
responsibility.
now that they're raising interest rate, they don't talk about how they're gonna pay the national debt, which is at $31 trillion. How they're gonna come up with the difference on the budget? That's another
Print
thing that they don't
more.
have a budget. So that also took my attention that this is the only country that whenever they reach the debt ceiling, they just basically gather together again. They just raise it and raise it and raise it. And some people don't understand that too. That's very important because that's basically telling us that we're really broke as a country.
Exactly. We can't pay the interest on our. I love how they say, well, the interest on our debt is this. No, because we aren't even paying all the interest on our debt. So that excess interest then goes into the principal and you are compounding interest. So
Yeah.
they never intend to pay that. They That's why the hyperinflation is so critical for particularly a country and particularly an advanced economy because in theory they even recently there was a I think a Bloomberg or Wall Street Journal article recently that actually said no, this inflation is really good because it's going to enable the government to repay the debt with cheaper dollars.
Oh wow, they even say it.
They said it. I was like, oh my God. So that's what happens, right? You hyperinflate, the currency has absolutely no value, and you have to reset everything. You reset the debt. It's never about really paying anything off. But you and I, as normal citizens, oh yeah, we're responsible for our debts.
Yeah.
So
But like I say, it's crazy how those things are unfolding. And see this happening in the United States. I couldn't believe
you
it.
couldn't believe it.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. And I
But you
just pray
believe it
that,
now.
yeah, no, now I believe it, and I'm aware of it, the situation. I'm even trying to explain to my wife, and because when they start doing the COVID uh,
Lockdowns.
stimulus package
Oh,
and all that, I told my wife that, listen, this is gonna make things worse. This is not gonna help.
no.
Basically, you're just printing money without productivity. So we know what happened when that happened, when they do that.
Yeah.
Because that's
Well,
exactly what they do in Venezuela. They just print money out of nowhere. Of course, the ones that benefit the most are the ones who have the money in the first hand. But you don't
exactly.
realize that. You
That's
don't
not you
realize
and me.
that. Yeah, that's not us for sure.
Yeah. But that is really the importance of gold and silver where there's a finite amount. I mean, no matter what that is, there's only so much gold. And I always find it really interesting that I never hear anybody talk about all of the different uses for gold and silver. And that's why it's never ever gone to zero, because it has the broadest base of functionality. And it's used in the financial markets, it's used in gold, it's used in food, it's used in medicine, it's used in electronics, it's used in every single aspect of the global economy, and therefore there is always demand.
Yes, my personal experience. At the beginning of this, when I started searching, I think I purchased some amount of silver and some amount of gold, but I didn't have the knowledge quite yet. I know I was into something, but I remember I started looking at the prices every day, and I was there like,
Right.
oh, went down, losing money. So at one point I got desperate, like it went down like really bad. I don't know, in one of those fluctuations on the price, and
Yeah,
I'm,
shocker.
I'm gonna sell this
Bad
because
news was coming out. Bad news was coming out. That's why they slammed it. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, what I was trying to just say, basically, at one point I decided to sell. So what I'm trying to bring this message is because after I learn and I start doing my research, I understand the fundamentals behind the metal, the usage, and like I said, the different indicators and the strategy. Because this strategy is just about wealth preservation. It's not for you to become rich in one day, or or that kind of stuff
Right.
that people think. So yeah, it took me a little while, but it happens. You know what I mean? So I'm saying that because it happened to me. I'm sure it could happen to someone else at the beginning. But if you understand the fundamentals, you understand that this is not an investment. This is for long term until those things start unfolding. But you
Exactly.
better do it now because when those tiers start getting tight, you're not gonna be able to find any gold or any silver. I don't think that's gonna be something available. It happened also during the cerveza sickness. I think that's what they
Right.
call it.
Yes.
I tried because I got scared. You know what I mean? At the beginning, when I started seeing all these things, I said, "Oh wow!" So I tried to buy some gold when that happens, and I couldn't find any gold anywhere. So I
You should
was
have
like,
called us because we were still getting it.
I tried that, but no, it was very hard. Believe me.
Yes, it was hard. Yeah.
And some dealer you were able to get the order, but the dealer was gonna take a while.
Well,
Uh,
yes, that was
which,
true.
so I did that, but I was trying to find it. So it was a very good exercise for me because when things get tight, you're not gonna be able to reach to the metals. Everybody want it. So it's something that people really have to pay attention because you think you can get it anywhere whenever you want to, but no, that's not true.
Nope. It's just kind of like you think you can get your money out of the bank anytime you want to, and you
Yes,
discovered
that's an illusion. That's
no.
an illusion.
Yes, and I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah, because that happened in Venezuela. People trying to get their money, they can't. I think it happened also right now in Lebanon. I think there was this
Yes,
article where this lady went over to the bank trying to assault them to get her money back because they can get their money out of the bank.
oh yeah.
So
I mean, they're taking hostages. These are like normal people. These aren't like hardened criminals, but they're going in and taking hostages just to get some money out of the bank.
yes,
And the community is
their own
cheering them
money.
on.
By the way, their own money. It's not like they're stealing. They're just going to crazy measurements, trying to get their money so they can put money in their table because I'm sure that's what they're looking at for, you
Exactly.
know. So it's happening not only in Lebanon, I think Turkey is experiencing high levels of inflation as well. Uh, I'm sure Iran is
Oh
experiencing.
yes.
So this phenomenon is all over the place. It's just some countries are ahead of others. But
Yes.
definitely United States is also there now too, in Europe too, as we already know.
Oh yes. I don't like the action, honestly. I do not like the action, particularly in the government bond markets that I'm seeing, because that's sold to us as being the safest thing that you can do because the governments can print to repay you. Well, they're acting more like a risk asset than they are like a stable foundation. They're not
Well,
stable.
when I saw the 10-year Treasury almost at 4%, I couldn't believe it. I said, "Wow!" And my question was, how long they're gonna keep this on? Because it's just a matter of time when start reversing the course
Exactly.
of this, and that's when they think the hyperinflation is gonna kick in. When they come out with a changing policy, and basically they're gonna come out with stimulus package trying to revive the economy, that the system that, as you point, that dies in 2008.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. We've already seen Bank of England doing an about face, and that was my question. How much pain will the central bankers take before they do an about face? They're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't. They built this rock and hard place and they are squeezed right in the middle of it. So and I agree with you. This next big turnaround when they print, and which I think will make what they did in 2020 look like chump change. And if you look at what they did in 2020, it made 2008 look like nothing, like chump change. And I think you're right. I think that's when the what little bit of confidence yet remains, and there's not much, that'll be done, and then we'll go into the hyperinflation. I agree with you on that.
The CBDC is just basically part of their plan. And like I say, in my opinion, the whole idea of this is basically, instead of open up black market by regulating prices, they will regulate the demand of their products.
Right?
Because that's basically what it is they can program this money, and they basically give you allowance on whatever. Even I was thinking, even as a landlord, they can even control
Correct.
what your tenant give you as a rent, because they can say this is the maximum that we're allowed to put into your account for rent. So some people that were mentioning about rent prices control on their prices, I think can happen
Oh,
through
absolutely.
this digital currency.
Absolutely. But and that really is the importance of having gold, silver, and some level of cash. Even though it's losing its value very rapidly, it's still the most recognizable. And you could probably remember when cash in Venezuela still had some level of value because people had confidence in it.
Well, at a hyperinflation level, at one point you start experiencing people trading things for another without
So
currency.
bartering.
Yes. So we had that in Venezuela with diapers, like babies that they don't fit those diapers because of the size. So they were trading those diapers for milk.
Right?
You saw that in at that time, or items that were not able to found in the supermarket. People try to trade in for more stuff. So we saw those things happen in Venezuela too. That happened down there.
So would you say that the community also came together to help each other through this?
Well, in a way they did. I know in a community where I used to live, they had like a group message. So what they did is basically, I'm having this diaper. Somebody, I'm trading it because I need coffee. Somebody wants those diapers. Let me know. That kind of thing. So people start communicating, and that was kind of like the way, like a little market. So people start reading, what can I do? What can I find? Things, that kind of stuff. So yes, the community come together. Like I say, in Venezuela, we did try to take our freedom different time, protesting, but like I say, it didn't work. And now they're even happy because the government take full control. Now that the people left the country, they have more control over the people that
Right.
stay there.
Yeah, exactly. It was a brain drain. And
Yes,
that's what happens, but where do you go if it's the whole world at once?
yeah, that's that's a big problem right now.
Huge.
It's gonna be very interesting because this is globally. It's not just in United States.
Exactly. It's not just in one place. It's all over. And in many ways it is all over. I mean, we have to understand that this is the end of this experiment's life cycle. And so they're trying to set those CBDCs up to move everybody in there. And it's easy. They push a button and they can create all these credits, but they can also dictate where you spend them, how much you spend on them, how long they're even viable to be spent, etc. And I agree
They
with
can
you.
punish your social behavior. If you don't behave the way they want you to behave, then you don't get your income. I
Yeah.
see that coming.
Yeah. And
I,
so if you're holding physical metals outside of the system and the only way to purchase is with their CBDC, you can always liquidate that money, put it into the CBDC, and then buy what you need to buy. But anything you put in more than that, basically you're kissing goodbye, I think.
and I believe they're gonna control that too, because I don't think
Absolutely.
they want you to be buying gold or anything that is outside the system.
Yep.
So that's another reason why people should take action before those things happens,
Yep.
because they can also control what you can buy,
Exactly.
including metals. Yeah, it's funny because I know you point a lot of times about gold confiscation that happened here in America.
And in
Well,
Venezuela, 2011, wasn't that when Chavez nationalized and confiscated gold?
well, they nationalize it, but they never confiscate gold to citizens. That's something that in Venezuela, for some reason, didn't happen. We did not have that gold confiscation. But I guess because regular citizens, like I said, we were not prepared for it. So we didn't have the culture, or we were not prepared. So we didn't have metals. Uh, they have metals, but like yearly usage, change, but no goal for protection, not for devaluation, for to be protected on that case, on those cases.
That's why they didn't need to confiscate.
Yes, so that's exactly what happened.
Wow. So
But here,
interesting.
yes, I don't know here how they're gonna. How do you think they're gonna do it when they put in place those CBDCs? I mean, or how are you gonna be able to trade with gold?
Well, I mean, gold is universal money. I think what a confiscation in this country is likely to look at, most people that even have gold. I mean, again, just like in Venezuela, you just have maybe not even 3% of the population at this point that owns physical gold. And other than jewelry, a wedding band, a necklace, things like that. So most of the gold held by citizens is held inside of IRAs that are held at a depository. And they're going to want cooperation. They're not going to come at you so that you try and protect yourself. They're going to want you to cooperate and volunteer. So let's say spot is at $2,000 when that happens. The government would say, well, we're confiscating your gold, but we're going to give you $3,000. Now,
I
the
did it
2000,
before.
what?
I think they did this before during the I think was Nixon when this happened here,
When
that
Nixon,
they
well, Nixon closed the gold window. So, but it did happen here. That happened in 33 when they confiscated the gold from the
1933,
citizens.
yeah.
Okay. In 1971, Nixon reneged on the Bretton Woods Accord in the 40s. And basically, in 33, the citizens could no longer hold gold, right, and use it. In 71, foreign governments could not turn in their dollars in exchange for gold. So,
Yeah, but I believe that they had that what you were mentioning, the spot gold. I think they were offering, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was $20
yeah,
for every ounce of gold.
$20.64.
Yeah, for every ounce of gold that people return to the government
Right.
voluntarily. And then after that, they raised it to $35 an ounce. After they,
Exactly.
yeah,
And look at percentages again, right?
oh yeah.
So, right? So it's not just the $35, it's that percentage, but that's because they had printed so much new money and gold was so undervalued at that $20, for a 1 ounce gold coin. And it was actually, even when they revalued it at 35, it was still undervalued. They just felt like they couldn't pull that extra purchasing power value out of the currency without creating a revolt. And I definitely do agree with you at this point that we will most likely see probably even perhaps a global revolution. When people get hungry and hopeless, they make choices they would not otherwise make. And, when it's obvious that the wealthy just keep getting wealthier and everybody else just keeps getting poorer, at some point, people have a problem with that. But if they have physical gold and silver outside of the system, it'll be interesting to see. I think that an overt confiscation is highly likely. I mean, we have it in our country many times or several times throughout our history. So, history has a tendency to repeat or at least rhyme. But even if the population holds not enough gold for them to be worried about, so like in Venezuela, if they didn't do a confiscation of the citizens, I think they will definitely regulate what you can buy, what you can't buy. This is why when it comes to gold, I personally only buy collectibles because I think we are going to have a confiscation again. And that is the most likely item to be exempt from confiscation like it was in 33. Because when they write the rules, they write them for their benefit. So if I can be in that category, that's where I want to be.
Well, my cousin's grandparents, they immigrate to Venezuela from Italy, from
Ah,
the Second World. So they did have a lot of silver and gold. What are they called? Those old coin was one of the very old coins.
the
Uh,
collectible
he,
coins, the new
yeah.
pre-33s, yes.
He didn't have it in the plastic thing because I don't think they had those
They didn't do it
back
then.
then.
Right.
However, he tried to exchange it for money at one point, and in Venezuela, this happened over there. They give him the value as a metal, but they didn't give him the historic value as a collectible. That happened in Venezuela. I don't know if because Venezuela, I don't know if because it's not recognition, they don't know, or they don't have the culture. But it did. I mean, he experienced that, and something that came up to me to tell you. Be-
That's so interesting.
yes,
So
but
so
this,
go ahead.
but this is coming from his grandparents. His father and his mother inherit, and they have it. And at one point, he wanted to turn it in to get some money. He told me, and he didn't do it because they were not giving him the collectible value of it. They were only giving him the metal as a metal, but not as a collectible.
So let's say that happens again. Okay? And first of all, that was a way for him to get wealth out of World War II, out of Italy, which
Yeah, that's how
is
they did actually. That's how they arrived to Venezuela. And
you're giving me chills, right? So that's really significant because that established him in this new country. Now,
yeah, to his parents, because he's my cousin. He's like the third generation. The because they've been passing on. But yes,
so they still have those coins?
yeah, they do.
That's so fabulous. Now, let's say that that were to happen, and there's different levels of collectibles, right? So, depending upon what you want to accomplish, that's what you position into. But I have a group of like, just basic coins. It's a higher populations, more blemishes, stuff like that. So they still qualify, they're still slab, they still qualify. But I'm buying them at such a deep discount to the true fundamental value of gold that if I need to turn them in and they have absolutely no collectible value, it doesn't really matter. That level is about purely just protecting my purchasing power. And I don't care because it's still in nominal terms anyway. I get that money back. And then of course I have there are different quality levels. So it always depends. You always have to start with your goals, but that's how you have a diversified metals portfolio.
Yes.
right?
I think that junk silver is also very important.
I agree.
So for someone that is just starting, I mean, I think it's not that expensive and it's a way to start,
Exactly.
because that's the thing, especially for the Latin community. On those times that we are right now, probably not many people have discretionary income anymore
Right?
because they just like to put food on their tables. So even though the silver is what around $18 an ounce now,
Yeah. I mean, there's a
uh,
big premium. You're not buying it at $18 an ounce, that's for
yeah,
sure.
I'm talking the spot price though, but
Right.
yes,
Yeah, the spot,
um,
the contract, Wall Street's price. You trust
yeah.
them?
Oh well, that's another thing. When you say Wall Street, that also helped me a lot because it came to my mind like, how come they can generate as many as they want when it's a metal? It's not like you can have tons of metals. You know what I mean? It's a limited
Right.
quantity. But in Wall Street, you can buy as many as you want.
Right. You could create gold and silver that does not nor ever will exist in the ground, above the ground, regardless of the form, which is something else that I really appreciate you pointing out, that people who had jewelry, would turn that jewelry in to put food on the table. So gold
Yeah.
and silver in any form is still monetary at its base.
Mm.
Critical for people to understand.
Yeah, no. In Venezuela, at one point couldn't see the lines of people only on those places where you can turn your gold. And the malls, those were the only stores that were full of people. People making the line trying to get money. That was during the hyperinflation, the highest level, so you couldn't see that. I think I remember also someone who told me that they found a coin and they didn't know if it was silver or not. So they went over there and ended up it was a silver coin. So they ended up getting, I think, I don't know, $20, something like that. They told me down there because it was, I don't know how many ounces it was, but it was a big one. Uh,
This is another way for the government to get gold and silver out of the population, too, isn't it?
yes, Venezuela at one point they issued coins. I mean, the regular currency was made of silver.
Correct. Yes.
Yes, and some of them back in the days also were made in gold. So you also can find some Venezuela currency from many years ago that were made of gold, and some of them were made of silver. So yes, those definitely are monetary metals. I mean, from history point.
Absolutely. Do they have a collectible market in Venezuela? Do you know?
Not that I'm aware of.
I couldn't find that either. I've looked. I found the coins that you're talking about, but I couldn't find a specific collectible market there.
And I do know, like my cousin also mentioned about some art, and at one point they were trying to do something with the bank. Uh, And besides the price of the condominium that they were trying to get an appraisal on, they also give him another extra credit for the paints that they had on the condo. So art is also another way, definitely to storage well.
Yes.
I was surprised when he mentioned to me that, but they definitely
It's
give him some extra credit for it.
it had to have been some good pieces because
Yeah.
dynastic wealth, and that's wealth that lasts in families at least 300 years, is made up of three basic legs: real estate, truly rare collectibles, and gold. Now you can do all three with gold because you can have a gold mine, you can have, a very rare collectible coin, and then you can just have the basic monetary gold coins that we were talking about. But I'm sure that that art had a level of collectible value, which is why they paid him for that. And you're right, it's dynastic wealth.
Yeah, those were items that came from Italy. Like I say, they were transferred from generation to generation, and that's how they got it. But they came from
Generational wealth.
yes, and those came from they immigrate to Venezuela from Italy when the World War II. They were immigrants. Venezuela was back then was a good country, On the 80s, especially when we had the oil boom,
Right?
we have a lot of
Oh,
Venezuelan in a good economy side. The good side of Venezuela back then, that's not Venezuela right now, for sure.
no, although they are still sitting on a lot of oil reserves. So,
Yeah.
it's just a lot of wealth transfer. It's a lot of picking winners and losers. And that's what we see governments and central banks do all the time. And it's typically the public that's the loser because we are not too big to fail. But if we come together,
Well, I told my wife that poverty is created, that people don't realize it, but it's just that's not, it's created by men and
correct.
by design of the system. And I feel bad for people that they work hard many hours, sometimes they work extra time, and they don't understand why they can keep going, they can progress, why they can get things, why they can progress.
Right. Where's that American dream? It's out of the reach for most people. By
Yeah, you
design,
work
as you pointed
hard,
out.
you're getting, maybe you're probably earning more money, but at the same time, your electric bill is higher, your gas prices are higher, your food is higher. So it's worthless, the extra effort that you're trying to do. You don't see any progress out of it. You're just trying to offset the inflation effects.
Well, I think that, you bring up a really interesting point there because what we're seeing now, the new phenomenon, is like this laid down generation that they've seen, well, no matter how hard somebody's working, they still can't reach that American dream. So why bother? Just do the minimum that you have to do to kind of get by. And we're seeing that in China. We're seeing that in the US. We're seeing that globally. It's really interesting. And then, so this goes into part of the
There's,
social shift.
yeah, there is no motivation for people to go to work.
Right.
Why? You know what I mean? They try to live minimalist and without expecting any huge progress. They just basically looking to survive. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's definitely happening.
That's long-term damage.
Yeah,
That's long-term damage. So we live in interesting times and you know, here's hoping. Here's
yeah.
hoping that we all can come together. We can say no to the garbage they want to put down our throats, and we can have a much more fair system on the other side of this with lots of choices.
And the other thing also that happened last week, I think in Capitol Hill, that they had Jimmy Dimon, Bank of America CEO. They finally start uh, basically saying that we were gonna get into a recession. I think we are already in a recession, but they're saying we're
Yeah, we
gonna.
are. We are in an official, well, not an official because they get to declare whether or not, but we are in a technical recession, just
Yeah, by
not
definition.
official.
Yes.
Let's just change the
So
names, change the accounting, change this, change that. Yeah, what Bank of England is doing is not QE because QE is about boosting inflation. This is about controlling the market their treasury market that is disorderly. Well, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for your time and your efforts, and I'm 100% certain will be having this conversation again, especially with you and Fernando, so that you can have it in Spanish and
sure.
help as many people as possible.
Thank you, Lynette, and take care. And thank you for what you do.
Oh, you're very welcome, and thank you for being here today. And to all
All
of
right.
our viewers out there, I hope you got as much out of this conversation as I did because this was really a fantastic conversation and so timely and so important. And please, please, please take heed. And until next we meet, please be safe out there. Bye bye.